Guys, I'm excited about what's going on. Obviously, we're in this series on Sunday called God Math. We're going to be talking about our third equation. You're not going to want to miss it. It's good. I'm going to tell you the topic in advance. It's this idea of worship over wealth. Worship over wealth. What does it mean to worship over wealth? And how does that play into our lives and the difference that it can make? It makes such a huge difference. You'll see it throughout Scripture. But we are in our Genesis. We are in chapter 12, and we're gonna read a little of 11, or just talk about the ending of chapter 11. We really didn't read it, but it's going to be another list of words and names that I'm not going to read, so I'm just going to talk about it. From Genesis 11:27 to 11:32, we're going to find this series of nations again out of Terah. Before 27, this list of nations, and he's going to end on verse 27 and start talking about a new group of people. Let's think in our minds, we're 400 years-ish after the flood, the Tower of Babel has happened, and all of a sudden we're kind of hone in on one of those people groups, or those nations, or those language groups, and we don't really know what happens to any of the other ones really at this time. Okay, so the Bible is going to shift and start drifting down to where did Abraham come from, what's his story, and what is he all about. So in verse 27 it says this: Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran fathered Lot. And Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. Okay, so we have now a new location besides Babylon mentioned, a town. The town or the city or the area of Ur. It's of the Chaldeans, so we know that this tribe or group would consider themselves Chaldeans. They're speaking the language of the Chaldeans, all right? And then we go to verse 29, and it says this: And Abraham and Nahor took wives, and the name of Abram's wife is Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife is Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and Ishkah. Now, Sarah was barren, and she had no children. So right off the bat, the author is setting the narrative of this picture of what's going to happen with this promise that God is going to give. I want you to know, sometimes in our lives, if we're paying attention, God gives us little clues and little hints to the direction in which He wants us to go. The question is whether we are paying attention, because in this situation, this was a bad deal. Ladies who didn't have children were not a good thing. So there's no question that Abraham is facing a situation where he is feeling the weight of not having children. Children, again, big deal back in this day. Now, verse 31 says this: Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, and the three sons of Haran, and his grandsons, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans again to go to the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there, or Haran. Now, I need to just talk a little bit about this. The truth is, we know pretty much that the area of Ur of the Chaldeans is in Mesopotamia, okay? So if you were to look at the map in your head, and I almost put a map up for you, but I want you to visualize in your head how you're seeing Israel. So I'm backwards. So Israel's on the Mediterranean, okay? This would be your side. And then there's this desert, and then you have the Tigris and Euphrates River over here, and Ur of the Chaldeans is below Babylon, down in Arabia in this direction, okay? That's where the Chaldeans are coming from. Now, when he says, hey, I'm going to call you to go to Canaan, it's a straight shot across to the Mediterranean Sea, and you would think that would be the pathway that they would go. But guess what? They're not going to go that way. Why? There's a big, huge desert between Canaan over here, which is interestingly backwards. Canaan, if I'm doing it the wrong way, and Mesopotamia, or this place of Ur. They don't just go right across. That's why they're going to end up in this place, Haran, before they get there. Now, Haran is north. Think of this as an area, they believe, not proven, they believe, It's in southern Turkey. So think about that. They're going to go from Lower Arabia all the way up north to Haran, and they're going to stop there before Abraham is called back down to this area of Canaan. Now, why would they do that? Does anybody know? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just cut straight across, besides the desert? By this time, obviously, we got to know some things. Number one, there are trade routes already. We're 400 years later, okay, after the flood. There is activity happening. People are moving. There are pathways. I don't know about you. How many of you guys would love to go to Nome tomorrow, but you can't take a plane? You got to just go through the woods. We're just going to head that way. On my compass, I'm going to put it on my GPS. It's going to point my arrow, and we're just going to go that way. That's not what you would do, right? If you were smart, you would probably take the highway up as far as you could, up to a river, and you would jump on the river, and you would float yourself down. You're finding the easiest path. That's what these guys are doing. They end up following the Euphrates River up north. That's how the trade route goes. You'll look in history, even the Babylonians, when they take over Israel later on, 1,000 years later or so, they do the same pathway. They go up north, and then they crash from the top. Okay? Now, this is the path that they happen. Now, where are we at? Now, it says this, the days of Terah were 205 years, and then Terah died in Haran. Now, what was happening? Again, this is 400 years after the flood. You need to grasp that. 400 years after the flood. We have seen the 70 nations dispersed. This is the history. This is where we're at. Now, this is what's going to be amazing. Noah was 58 years-ish old when Shem dies. I'm sorry. Noah is 58 years of age when Abram, I believe, is going to die. So there's this huge space. I didn't bring my map, and I had it on there, guys. I'm so sorry. My timeline. We have all these incredible statistics of people are alive for a long time. Remember, we had Noah living 500 years after the flood. This is happening somewhere around 400 years. So think about the people that are alive. We have Noah alive. We're going to have Shem alive. While all of this is happening at the same time, and yet the story does not focus on what they're doing. It's going to focus on what Abraham is doing. Now, this is interesting too. Shem outlives Abraham by 35 years. So Shem is going to outlive Abraham in this story. Now, again, when we talk about how did the story pass on, how did information get transferred, and when you live 500 years, or you live 300 years, or you live 400 years, it's amazing how much information can pass to the next generation. The other thing that's interesting is this. When Isaac is born, Isaac is going to die. Isaac is going to be 110 years old when Shem dies, finally, the son of Noah. And Jacob is going to be 50 years old when Shem dies. So both Isaac and Jacob are both going to be alive when Shem, the original son of Noah, dies. Joseph will have only been born 41 years after Shem dies. And again, we're talking about the patriarchal story of Joseph. Now, obviously these dates are up for grabs, but truthfully it's somewhere around there. The point I'm just trying to make is this. Get the context of the setting. There are still people alive from the flood. They still have the full-on story. Whatever their nations or their tribes are still continuing the journey. They actually still have a knowledge of who God is, even though we know that they turn to false gods and kind of destroy the whole world. Now, we also know this. When we talk about where does God interject in this story. First of all, we know this. God interjected himself when Noah landed. He made a covenant with Noah. You hear this interchange between God and man, and God and Noah and his sons. Okay, so he makes this promise. Then all of a sudden we have this, what we would assume is somewhat of a disappearance of God. We don't see God show up again until when? The Tower of Babel. So we have him showing up in the beginning. We don't know if there are any other interactions, but we have none recorded. Then he shows up at the Tower of Babel. Then we have crickets again. And now all of a sudden we're going to have God show up again. okay, right here around this time, this interaction with Abraham, this conversation. And again, this is a 400-year period of time. We have 2 recorded. We don't know if it's the only ones, but it is interesting that they're the only ones recorded. Now, here we go. We get done with this whole story. The family is in Haran. It's up north, estimated up north by Turkey. And here we go with chapter 12 and verse 1. It says this. Now the Lord said to Abraham, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to a land that I will show you. And I will make your nation a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who curse you, and those who dishonor you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." Okay, this is considered the Abrahamic covenant between God. He's going to repeat it a couple times. He's going to solidify it even more boldly because he knows Abraham can't keep his part of the deal. It's going to be a covenant between God and God, not God and Abraham. He's just going to promise the entire thing to Abraham, regardless of his righteousness or his position. That's what's really kind of interesting. The second thing you need to understand is this. Notice that where Abraham's faith is at is in that he did what? When we think of Abraham's faith, what is it in? He does what? He obeys God. In other words, a simple thing like Abraham, I want you to go. That's all. I want you to go to Canaan. And he is considered righteous or the man of faith because of his obedience or his willingness to go. Not only he's going to demonstrate this willingness to listen to God as God and him are encountering, clear into his willingness to sacrifice his own son Isaac. So when we talk about things like our lives, when we talk about, hey, what's important for us, what is God looking for from us, sometimes we equate it to our works. Okay, what we do for God and how we serve God, we give to God, we do all these things for God. But in essence, what we find in this situation is that God is simply looking for you to do what he's asked you to do. He's looking for obedience. And obedience is described as a reflection of one's faith or belief that God is who he says he is. So sometimes we make the Christian faith so complicated. It's just not complicated. It's simple. God has laid it out, and our job is just to believe by doing it. And when we do it, we prove that we believe it and that God has called us to do it. So I want you to think about that simple reality as we're going through this passage and ask yourself the question, am I listening to God? Do I hear him? He's not giving you a different revelation, by the way, than what's in the Word. He doesn't need to give you a special plan that's different than someone else's. He's called you to be an ambassador, a reflection of him. He's called you to be salt, light, love. I mean, we could walk through all the definitions of what he's called you to be, but it is to be a representative, again, from back in Genesis 1, a representative of him. This is what you've been called to be. This is what Abraham is getting ready to demonstrate. And the first step in Abraham becoming the nation of Israel or the representative of Israel or God to the world through this nation was his willingness to simply obey. Now notice what God promises him. And I want you to ask yourself the question, what does God promise you? When you obey, does God promise you something greater than simply the Christian life you're in today? I believe he does. I believe he gives favor, or for example, he resists the proud Christian and he gives grace to the humble Christian. Therefore, there is something that transpires when we act on our knowledge of what we should do or how we should live when it comes to God. Notice he says this, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. All of these are personal attributes to what is going to happen to Abraham. He is going to have a great nation. Now, there's a problem here, right? In the first one. What is that? It's going to be played out later. His wife can't have children. So what good does it do, right? What good does it do for him to say, hey, Lord, you made me a great nation, but I don't see that happening. So that's going to play out. That's a major factor. Not only that, he says, I'm going to make your name great. Notice that Abraham's name, even in the Islam world and in the Jewish world, is still one of the names. Like, that is the guy. Okay? It's amazing. We're still talking about Abram here thousands of years later. Now notice Genesis 17 and verse 6. Let's jump forward. It says this. He says this same exact promise. I will make you exceedingly fruitful. I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. So he's in chapter 17, when he does this promise again, he kind of clarifies what it means that I'm going to make you great. I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to bless you, and this blessing is going to be that you're going to make nations, not a nation. And kings shall come from you. This is going to be an incredible and amazing thing. Now, we are actually, by the way, as Gentiles, grafted into this promise that God gave Abraham. We're going to find that out later as well. Now, Israel was chosen to be a reflection of God's civil government on the earth. In other words, this is what's getting ready to happen. God is creating a nation to represent him, to be his people, so that the world will know that there is a God and that he takes care of his own, if they will simply do some easy things like follow the law and be smart and obey him, which they fail miserably like we do quite often. So he's going to make a government of moral law, civil law, and he's creating a government that worships one true God and not multiple gods, which is what's happening in the culture around them. Now, when it says you will be a blessing, I think it's very interesting. What does it mean to be blessed by God? Did you ever wonder that? I wonder that. So many people have so many different definitions of what this is. Some people think, oh, well, it's about having wealth. Some people say, no, it's about having happiness. Some people believe, well, it's about having a good family. Everybody's got a story. What is it that it is about blessing? That is that point that is promised here to Abram. I will make you a blessing. Well, this idea of blessing is how his nation, or the nation that follows him, or his people will bless the nations. How will they present themselves to the world? What is the difference that they will make in the world? Now, if you haven't done this before, I would encourage you to do this, is type in a Google search and say, tell me all of the Jews who have made a significant impact in the world. And you will get a list that will go for a while. You would be absolutely shocked at the inventions and the minds and the things that have happened. Some good and some horrible. Okay? Don't misunderstand me. Some good and some horrible. But their impact in the world is amazing. How about this? Albert Einstein, Jew. We would consider him the wisest guy on the planet. I mean, right? He's a genius. Right? He's the theory of relativity. He's the absolute incredible genius of physics. He changes the whole world with E equals mc squared. And all of a sudden we find out more than we ever could on how things work and how space and time work and how all that works. You have Theodor Herzl. He was the guy who was a writer. It was a Zionist writer who basically was the reason why Israel became a nation later on. He set the tone for giving the idea that Israel needs a home back, which would be in 1947, a completion of prophecy. I mean, we have all kinds of people. I can't even pronounce their names. Niels Hendrik David Bohr, theory of atomic reactions and nuclear energy. You could say, oh, that's not a good thing. But the Jewish nation was actively involved in the whole idea of nuclear power and what happened in the world. We got Paul Ehrlich. He is all about chemotherapy. He created it. He designed it. His ideas were what led to it. Obviously, you can say that's good or bad. I don't know. Some that have been healed by cancer would say good. Some that have died by cancer would say bad. But the point is that he made an incredible impact. Karl Landster, this guy here, he was the one that discovered blood types. Jew. Talk about a blessing. My sisters, as you know, both have kidney transplants. And my mom's kidney transplant failed when she was 37 and died because of this, the complexity of blood types and how organs have to work with one another. The technology that this guy starts is amazing. My sisters now have had their kidneys for 10 years, And the knowledge that has started from this guy has transformed what that even looks like. We got, that's another guy. We got Boris Rosen. He created the television. Again, on and on and on and on. On and on and on. Now, we also have all kinds of terrible people. Marxists, I believe. You have guys that are communists that killed millions of people who decided they were rulers, also Jews. Who's a modern-day Jew that you would say is frustrating right now in the political world? Anybody know? Jeffrey Epstein. Who? Chuck Schumer is a Jew? There's one with a lot of money, billionaire. He's always getting his hands in everything. Thank you. George Soros, Jew. Isn't it interesting that even in America, we equate the idea of Jews to what? Money. That's right. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? God has put his hand on these people, giving them whatever it is, wisdom, favor, you name it. It's incredible to think about this nation and how they have blessed or impacted the entire world. This tiny little group. It's unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable. Now, he says, he goes on to say, and the whole world will be blessed through you. Galatians chapter 3 and verse 8. What in the world is he talking about? It says this in Galatians 3:8. And the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, in you shall all the nations be blessed. What's he talking about? So then, those who are of faith and are a blessing along with Abraham and the faith and man of faith, blessed by God. Christ himself is going to end up being this exact person, the one who is blessed. He is going to bless all nations. Everybody will be blessed through them. Now, when we think about that blessing, 400 years after the flood, there's this forecasting that Christ is going to be the Redeemer. And again, that's the scarlet thread that you're going to find through the entire Old Testament that leads to Christ in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Genesis chapter 12 and verse 4 says this, so Abraham went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was how old? But he has no kids. 75 years old when he departed from Haran with this incredible blind obedience. Now, you would think in your mind, hey, God's picked a really good winner, right? I'm going to ask you the question, how good do you feel about yourself right now? God picked you, how you feeling? You feeling good about yourself? I got this. Most people want to read Bible characters from the perspective that somehow this incredible story of God choosing Abraham, that somehow Abraham is a really good guy. And I want you to know it's just not true. Abraham isn't necessarily a great person. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. He's going to do a lot of things wrong. And yet his faith that God exists and that he will hold to his promise is what grants him the greatest faith, not necessarily his journey of righteousness. Now, that's controversial in my saying. It's not Abraham's righteousness that God is rewarding. It's his faithfulness that he rewards. So often, we as Christians, we get those two switched. We think it's all about our righteousness and not about our faithfulness, our faith. Not to say being unrighteous is good. I'm just simply saying when we prioritize all the good things we do over our faith in who God is and how it determines the direction of our life, we might want to ask ourselves a hard question. Now, here's where we go with this story in chapter 12 and verse 5. And Abraham took Sarah his wife and Lot his brother's son and all their possessions that they had gathered at that time, and the people that they had acquired, by the way, there's a whole group of them. There's not just one or two in Haran. And they set out to go to the land of Canaan. And when they had came to the land of Canaan, by the way, south, and we're going to know that it's south because of this first place, Abraham passed through the land to a place of Shechem, to the oak of Morah. And at this time, this is the place, the land the Canaanites lived in. Now, if you know anything about Shechem, it is in northern Israel. So that's how we know Haran was probably most likely by the trade routes above and he's coming down, and he's going to Shechem. Now, Shechem is his first stop. We also need to know, where is Shechem today? Come on. Shechem is in the West Bank. Right now, it is not owned or operated or controlled by Israel. It is inside of Israel, but yet out of their control, even to this day. It's kind of fascinating. It's one of the places that he stops, and God promises Israel this space forever, and that's interesting they don't have it today. Now, verse 7 says this, Then the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him, a marker. So he marks the land that he's going to. Then in verse 8, he does something else. He continues to move. From there, he moved to the hill country. Now, many people read this and think, he was there for a day, or we have no idea. He could have been there for 2 years, okay? We don't really know how long he's in this place, but we know he is going to journey south of that. So from there, he moves to the hill country on the east side of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west side and Ai on the east side. What do we know about this? We know he's going south. We know this place, Ai. We know that even there's going to be a battle where Israel, when they come back, is going to get wiped out. 35 people are going to take out a whole nation. Okay? But just so you know, these two places, Bethel and Ai, are in a valley, and he's in the middle of them, and he can see both cities. He's not going to these cities. There are still Canaanite cities or cities for the people that are living there, and he's looking or living in the middle of them. And he does the same thing. Notice what he does. He builds an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. Right there. So every stop he's making, he's praising God. He's acknowledging, this is the land. God, I'm going to make an altar to you. I'm going to believe that this is going to be the promise or the land you're going to give me. Now, this place is north of Jerusalem, just so you know. So we're still 2 villages or 2 stops north of Israel. It's kind of central to that area, but it's between these 2 cities. Now notice what he does in verse 9. And Abraham journeyed on. So he's going to continue down this path or this trail. Right now there's even a highway that goes down this road, even to this day. And Abraham journeyed on, still going towards the Negeb. Now he's going to walk right through Jerusalem, and he's going to go to this place, Negeb. Now, what in the world is this? What's Negeb? Negeb is the area as the lowest point in the modern day Israel, okay? Egypt is on one side. The other side is, I don't even know what that is, whoever that is on the other side. Couldn't even tell you. Didn't pass geography. But it's a desert wasteland. The Negeb is a desert wasteland. Now, we don't know, this is what we don't know. We don't know if it's a desert wasteland in this day. Okay, we don't know that. But we do know that there's a famine in the land. Okay? We don't know that it's a desert. Could be, may not be. Obviously, when the children of Israel come into the promised land, they don't see the same thing we see. They see milk and honey, orchards, and all kinds of amazing things. Today, we'd say it's been destroyed. Some would say that's because God judged it. But either way, he's going to the Negeb. He's going to do the same thing. This is the southern part of Israel. It is now a desert. Now in verse 10 it says this. This is very interesting. Now there was a famine in the land. Now I want you to think about that for a moment. What's Abraham supposed to be doing? Going where? Anybody tell me? Going to Canaan. Okay? He's just walked north to south of modern day Canaan. Okay? He's done his job. He's where he's supposed to be. But then something happens. And this is our lesson that we should pay attention to. When you are where God calls you to go, how do you respond when it's not what you think it should be? How do you respond? What do you do? Abraham is faced with his first challenge of faith. Now, he was faithful and he left. Oh, yeah. He was faithful. He declared the land. He's marking them down. He's doing these altars. He's worshiping God. He's saying, yeah. He gets down to the Negeb. It's a desertous area. There's a famine in the land all of a sudden, or over time. We don't know how long this journey was. And he says, there's a problem. And like all Christians, he probably says, I'm not sure God's called me here now. because there's no food. And so it's easier to run rather than have faith. Marriages, it's easier to run rather than have faith. Children, it's easier to run rather than have faith or to honor parents. It's easier to run. It's always easier to run. The Bible is full of easier to run. And Abraham's going to run. And he's going to do something really stupid. Something that you and I would think, who does that? Here's what happens. And when he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarah, his wife, I know that you are a smoking hot woman. And you're amazing. Now, remember, she can't have children, so she's 75, or she's somewhere around 60, 70 years old at this time. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me because you're so smoking hot. But they'll let you live. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with who? Not her. He cares less. I don't care about you. Hey, say you're my sister, so it'll go well with me and maybe not so good for you, but I'll be good. I mean, I can see him now. This way, God made the deal with me. I'm making a great nation. I don't know if you're part of that plan, but you're really good looking, and I think I might lose my life here, so he must have another plan. I mean, I could go into all kinds of funny stories that you think about what's happening in this guy's mind. But clearly at this time in history, he's concerned because it sounds to me like it's kind of a cultural thing for the Egyptians to steal people's wives. I'm right? I mean, why else would you conjure up this crazy thought in your mind in the first place? We're living in very different times, right? We're living in not a civilized, necessary society. It's kind of like the biggest, strongest, baddest guy lives. And so he has a lot of people. Remember, he's got Lot. He's got all these people with him. It's not like he's by himself. And yet he still makes this incredible statement. It is the ultimate lie. I want you to understand that. He leaves where God has called him to go because something happens that distracts him from what he's supposed to do, and he goes to another land, and then he lies about his wife to cover his own tail because he shouldn't be there in the first place. Sound like you men? Sounds like me. Is that not what we do all the time? Like we literally get ourselves caught in traps because we don't do the very thing God's called us to do. Now, obviously, he married way above his pay grade, okay? He married way up. Obviously, he didn't trust God at all. I mean, he was human. He had fear. And yet he knew he was chosen by God to go to this land and create, and was promised a great nation. Again, that's the most important thing for you to understand. He had a God moment where God poured out a blessing on him, and he's still struggling. How can you learn from that? You're no different than him. Life happens. Pay attention. Understand God is still faithful. He is still around. We are not much different when it comes to this reality that Abraham finds himself in. Now notice this. I think this is also interesting in history. Notice there is a border at Egypt. Even at this time, 400 years after the flood, there is a border. There is someone who's saying, on this road, on this path, on this trade route, on whatever, we're entering in another land. Because it says he's coming up to Egypt. He knows he's getting ready to enter it. We also need to know that the nations have now, probably at this time, after the Tower of Babel, have started to set their boundaries. Okay, they've set their boundaries. So societally, in the world, we have boundaries being set. And there are cultural differences between groups already, i.e. stealing wives, which is this one here. So in verse 14, he says this, when Abraham entered Egypt, i.e. he knew he passed over, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. So he wasn't just making it up. Okay? He wasn't just like me, like I believe my wife's a 10 and 100, she's the hottest girl on the planet. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. But in this case, the Egyptians are like, you are correct. You are amazing. And what do? What do? When the princes of Pharaoh's children, now this is kind of an odd story. I mean, come on, put your mind around this. When Pharaoh's children see a woman with another man's group, think in their head, hey, we should give that girl to dad. It's kind of odd. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. Now, I want you to put yourself in Sarah's shoes for a moment, ladies. This has got to be one of the most frightening things on the planet. Here, your husband says, hey, God's going to make us a great nation. We're going to go to the land of Canaan. God is going to bless us. He's going to make us awesome. We're going to have kings come from us. I mean, this is good. This is a big deal. I can see the sales pitch. She's like, I kind of like Haran. It's kind of nice here. We're comfortable. We're okay. We got things going on. Oh, no. Sarah, we got to go. And so she obeys. She's sold a bill of goods. She's believing the whole story. She's going from one place to the next. Yeah, this is awesome. Desert, all of a sudden, famine hits. She might have been in there complaining like, hey, I had nothing to cook here, man. We got a problem. He decides, okay, we're going to go to Egypt. Then she finds herself looking at Pharaoh going, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? This man is getting ready to marry me. I don't know what this looks like. Now, this is another very interesting truth. We don't know a lot about the timeline here. The timeline is not they cross the border and immediately Pharaoh picks her up. We know that there's some time here. Abraham is spending some time in this land when this is being noticed. Didn't happen overnight, clearly, because we're going to find out when he leaves, there's something to his story. Now, he says this in verse 16, now for her sake, he dealt with Abraham. This is Pharaoh speaking. And he had sheep and oxen and male donkeys and male servants and female donkeys and camels. No, I just want you to know, she must have been amazing. Because Pharaoh downloads, what do we got in here, man? What does this guy need? Whatever he needs, we're giving him some stuff. We're giving him anything he needs because his wife or this girl, she is amazing. Now, he pays Abraham for his wife. Now, anytime Abraham has an opportunity here, and again, put yourself in the show. Anytime Abraham can say, time out, this is not a good idea. Anytime Abraham could have displayed the faith he had to go and obey God in this moment. He had the faith to say, you know what, I'm going to trust God that he's going to protect me. Because right now, Abraham is actually not acting as though he believes that God promised him this. Otherwise, why would he allow this to happen? Or is he thinking, man, I made a pretty good trade. I wonder what that woman's going to be that's going to make this great nation with me. There's another coin to that. Either way, he's not about to see what's going to happen. Notice something very interesting that happens next. In my story, who are we punishing? In your story, you write this story. Who's punished? Who's getting punished? Who? Pharaoh? No! Abraham needs to get punished. He's the liar. He's the liar. He's the one who left the promised land. He's the one who got me in this situation in the first place. You'd think God would come down and say, Abraham, you're an idiot. That's my story. If that's not your story, I need you. I don't know what to say. We shouldn't. Why would Pharaoh get punished? He's just like, hey, she's available. Yeah, I'm rich. Let's go. He's not thinking anything bad. He doesn't even know better. Okay? But then God does something. He does punish Pharaoh, right? So the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Now just stop right there. Again, we don't know when Pharaoh finds out that Sarah is Abraham's wife. All we know is there's a period of, I would say a long period of time where things are just like, what's going on in my house? I was king, I was the top of the food chain, and all of a sudden things are happening. What's going on? Have you ever had that in your house happen? I'm asking you. Has your wife ever said, honey, what is going on? There's a story of a member who was a giver, and he decided on his own he was going to stop tithing because he didn't know if it was really the best thing. I'm going to let him tell the story someday. It's pretty funny. And he says, I get in my car, and I go to work, and by the time I get to work, my wife gets on the phone and says, honey, the hot water heater went out, the house gets flooded. I mean, there's like a litany of things that are going on. He gets home, and she's like, what is going on? And he's like, I decided not to tithe today. And she lights him up. And that was his last option. Now, I'm not saying that for you to tithe. I'm just saying, you know those moments, right, men? Like, things are going bad, and your wife's like, what are you doing? What have you done? I can hear the word now. What have you done? This is what's going on. What have you done? Now, notice verse 18. Now, so Pharaoh called Abraham. So somewhere in this crazy story, Sarah or somebody, who squeals? I want to know. It's not there. I want to know the squealer's name. Someone says, hey, Pharaoh, that's not a good thing. This is not good. And notice, you got to give Pharaoh some credit. Notice his response, okay? I mean, really. Think about what you would do if you found out someone lied to you about their wife. You thought, I'm getting married to this beautiful woman. I've already paid for her. Take yourself in culture. Please forgive that. And everything's happening bad in my house. And then I find out this woman's someone else's husband. He should be fearful of his life, right? I mean, he should be thinking, I'm going to die. But he doesn't do that. God actually allows Pharaoh to understand and recognize who's the source of the punishment, i.e. God himself. And he calls Abraham and says, what is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? So we have this clarifying moment in Abraham's life. Obviously, it would have been wonderful for him to be able to admit it. He goes on in verse 19, why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go. What is going on? Now, these are great things to think about, and how long did this take? How long was she in Pharaoh's house before, again, this happened? Now, notice the wife was returned, and Pharaoh was a man of understanding. In other words, he understood that God was cursing him, and he wanted no part of it. Instead of killing Abraham, he's just like, hey, you got to go. You can't be here. Now, again, it's interesting in our lives how even outsiders of the Christian faith, or even outside people in your life, when you make bad decisions, God uses them to protect you from yourself. God uses them to protect you from yourself. When I decided that I want to work for my brother trucking, my brother saying, no, you can't be a trucker. God's called you to much more than that. He's an outside source. He's not inside. He is protecting me from my own foolishness. God uses other people in our lives, and sometimes because we're so arrogant, we're unwilling to listen to them. I want to challenge you. When people are saying things that you know are true, even though they're coming from a source that is not necessarily godly, you might want to pay attention. Is this the donkey, like in Balaam's story, talking to me? Like, is this a message I should be paying attention to, even though the source of the information is not godly? Or I would not say that it was. This is what Abram has to decide. So Pharaoh, what does he do? He gives the men orders concerning him and says, hey, send them away with his wife and all that he has. Notice that God protects him during this entire time. His wealth is going to increase. He is going to have prosperity and bound inside of this terrible decision, which is amazing to me, that God's still going to use this moment to actually bless Abraham and prepare him to get ready to go back where God has called him, which is Canaan. And how do we know that? Well, we're going to jump to 13 really quick before we close to read what happens. So Abraham went up from Egypt, where he was supposed to never leave, He and his wife, because they were not supposed to leave, and all that he had, and Lot with him, they go into Negeb, back where he was. And now Abraham was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. His status has changed. God uses his poor decision to teach him a lesson, and meanwhile, in the process, continues to bless him and sends him on his way. And I'm there to tell you, I can tell you from experience that oftentimes when God is teaching me a lesson, how I respond to that lesson determines the blessing that I will receive. Abram could have turned left or right, gone to Libya, gone down to Ethiopia, could have gone anywhere else, but he chooses to return because he knows it's the right place for him to go. My friends, how many times have you been down a journey where you know you're not supposed to be there because God told you to go somewhere else? How many times have you gotten into conversations with your husband or your wife and you got down a conversation that you know you're not supposed to be down and God's got to turn you around? How about at work? How about what you're chasing for your career? How about what it is that is in front of you? Abraham had this challenge. He had this dilemma. He's been called by God. He's been promised this incredible blessing. We've been called by God. We've been called to a wonderful blessing. Our question is just this: are we going to act on that in faith? And when we mess up, are we going to be quick to return and obey, or are we going to continue to run? Abraham returns. Abraham repents and returns. How many of you find yourself fighting instead of repenting and returning? Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your goodness to us. Lord, your word is so beautiful. And Lord, as we look at this historical document and this incredible story of history and how close it is to the flood and the people that are still alive at this time, it's just mind-blowing to think that Seth is alive at this time. And this is happening hundreds of miles away. And God, you are still involved. You are still working in the lives of Abraham to demonstrate to the world what you wanted to demonstrate to the world in the garden and with Noah, but they have chose to reject you. And so, Lord, I pray that we would learn a lesson from that. That we would see ourselves as the chosen nation. We are the people of God. We are your children. And you are our King, our Father. And Lord, I pray that we would continue in the way that leads to where you've called us to go and not drift right or left, but stay straight and true. Father, because we know when we drift right or left, we compound the problem by lying. We compound the problem by doing things that are inappropriate. We find ourselves down a path we never wanted to go down. And Lord, all you're doing is trying to call us back to who we are. And Abraham was being called back to what you had called him to be, a great nation in the land of Canaan. So, Father, I pray that we would learn a lesson from this, that it would transform the way we think and how we process. Give us wisdom in all we do. In Jesus' precious name, amen and amen. Well, everyone, thanks for being here tonight. Meet somebody new. Make sure you, if you don't know somebody, give them your number, especially if you're single in the house. I should have all the singles step up, find a single person, and get married. It's good for your health. Bye.
Hey, before you go, a couple quick things. 4, actually. Number 1, thank you so much for joining us today during this message. Number 2, if you made a decision for Christ, praise God. We are so happy for you. Please let us know by scanning this QR code on the screen. We would love to celebrate with you and send you next steps information. Number 3, if you found this information helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it on all your social media accounts so other people can hear it too. And lastly, again, if you found it helpful, please consider giving to our ministry here at Mountain City Church so we can continue reaching people for Christ. Thank you again for watching.